So Kurenai has red eyes. Why is that the case though? Because I bet $1,000 that most people that begin watching Naruto think that Kurenai is an Uchiha just because she has two very red crimson eyes. You know, when you make the primary trait of the most important clan of your series that the characters in that clan have red eyes, and then you just give a character that's seemingly not from the Uchiha clan red eyes as well, that's gonna raise some questions. This is a little bit confusing, but I would say it's one of the more interesting quirks about Kurenai's character. A lot of people think she's boring or she's just bad as a character, that she's useless and she never appears, and when she does so, she only screws up. But is that really the case though? I think there's more hidden underneath, and I think people don't understand how deep the rabbit hole can go, because Kurenai may actually be related to the Uchiha clan after all. We get introduced to Kurenai in the Chunin exams when she recommends her team to go. I mean, Kakashi and Asuma do the same thing, which makes people a little bit upset because usually the rookie genins are not really supposed to go to the Chunin exams. They're not experienced enough. They're gonna get themselves skilled, but regardless, our 9 rookies are recommended and they do go. So this already shows that Kurenai has a very decent degree of faith towards her team, Hinata, Kiba, and Shino, just like Kakashi and Asuma had towards their teams. Another interesting piece of information that we get about Kurenai's character is that she's actually a new Jounin. She hasn't been a Jounin for very long. When Asuma, Kakashi, and Kurenai are talking about the first test of the Chunin exams and they find out, oh, it's actually Ibiki who's administering the test, Kakashi says, oh, they're pretty screwed, man. They're not gonna pass because Ibiki is a menace. He's gonna torture them psychologically. And Kurenai's like, wait, who's that guy? That's when Kakashi says, oh yeah, I forgot you're a pretty new Jounin, so you wouldn't know who the guy is. But if you were a Jounin for longer, then obviously you would know because the guy's famous. And the thing is, Kurenai was 27 years old in part 1 of Naruto, just like Asuma and Kakashi. And we see in the Obito flashback when Obito is like taking the Chunin exams and also taking his graduation exams, Kurenai was actually in his class with Asuma, Kakashi, and Guy as well. So this definitely implies that Kurenai is not as strong as Kakashi, Asuma, or even Guy because she becomes a Jounin much later in life, which is not a terrible thing because most ninjas in the Naruto universe are never gonna become Jounins. People tend to forget this just because we tend to deal with the strongest characters in the series. Naruto and Sasuke eventually become so much stronger than anybody else, that's just kind of pointless to compare them with somebody that's a Jounin, for example. But don't forget that Jounin means elite ninja. These are the strongest ninjas of any given village. The vast majority, 95% of ninjas will remain Chunin for their entire careers, and only a select few will become elite ninjas because it's not something easy to attain. A lot of people have the impression that in order to become a Jounin, you just have to keep going your ninja career and eventually you are going to become one, but that's just not how it works. When you look at the alliance, all those ninjas grouped together in the 5 battalions, for example, the vast majority of them are gonna be Chunin rank. And we don't know exactly when Kurenai became a Jounin. This is never specified. Kakashi could have said that because she's a very young Jounin. She's just like been a Jounin for 6 months or maybe 2 years or maybe even 5 years, because remember Kakashi has been a Jounin since he was 13. But we know that Kurenai graduated the academy at 9 years old and she became a Chunin at 13 years old. Now graduating at 9 is actually very impressive, but becoming a Chunin at 13 is okay. It's better than average, I would say, but nothing out of the ordinary. Shikamaru became a Chunin at 12, so there's that. Kurenai has some interesting lines with Hinata and her team during the preliminaries of the Chunin exams, and she also fights against the Sound Ninjas when they invade the Leaf Village. She never does anything on screen or on page. I mean, she's never shown really fighting in that arc, but we see that when the arc is wrapping up, she is among the Jounins that were fighting in the arena against the invading forces, which is to be expected, right? Most of the ninjas that were still fighting after Kabuto's Genjutsu were Jounins and people that were able to break out of the Genjutsu before they were even affected by it. And Kurenai, being a Genjutsu Specialist, I think she's probably very capable of negating Kabuto's Genjutsu if Shikamaru and Sakura were, even though Sakura was hailed as a Genjutsu prodigy in the beginning of the Naruto series and then that plotline was kind of forgotten, but still, obviously Kurenai would resist the Genjutsu and fight against the invaders. But her most prominent exploits in the Naruto series happen in the next arc, when Itachi and Kisame show up in the Leaf Village. Now, this is also the arc that Kishimoto begins to set up Asuma and Kurenai as a couple when they are, walking together, and Kakashi says, "Oh, are you guys dating or something?" And Kurenai's blushing and says, No, we're not." Obviously, they were. But still, Kakashi spots two very strange figures wearing dark robes with red clouds, and he tells Asuma and Kurenai to pursue them because he was suspecting the two. Now, they end up being Kisame and Itachi, two very dangerous shinobi that Kurenai and Asuma knew. Obviously, they would know about Itachi, but Kisame was also a very prominent S-class rogue ninja, so they knew about him as well. And then they begin to fight. Well, you have to give it to Kurenai and Asuma. They were very brave. Maybe they didn't know exactly how powerful Itachi was. Maybe they weren't aware about his exploits. Obviously, they knew he slaughtered the Uchiha clan, but maybe they were like, oh, maybe Itachi just killed them in their sleep or something. I don't know. But they were just like casually starting to fight Itachi and Kisame. If Itachi actually wanted to kill them and go along with the infiltration plan, he would have done so in a couple of seconds if he wanted to. I mean, Asuma and Kurenai were pretty crazy, and Asuma was like, "I'm gonna mop the floor with you guys." He was very excited. I guess his dad has just died, in the Chunin exams, so he had to do something about the village. Maybe he was feeling guilty that he couldn't help his dad against Orochimaru and stuff. So he was like, yeah, let me throw myself against one of the most powerful ninja in the world and just see what happens. And then it happens. One of the most memeable moments of the entire Naruto series. Kurenai uses her Genjutsu against Itachi Uchiha. Now, as I mentioned before, Kurenai is a Genjutsu Specialist. She's said to be the most capable Genjutsu user in the Leaf Village. I mean, at the time of the story, obviously. And she actually manages to catch Itachi on her Genjutsu. Of course, Itachi knew what she was doing. She was weaving hand signs. Her Genjutsu is not visual or auditory. It's normal Genjutsu, quote-unquote. She weaves hand signs. She expands her chakra, hitting the target with her chakra and then inducing the target into a Genjutsu. And we can clearly see Itachi literally let himself get caught by it. He was kind of smiling when the tree starts to grow around him. Kurenai pops out of the tree and she's about to stab Itachi, and then, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, why am I under my own Genjutsu? That's very weird. And then Itachi's just standing in front of her and says, Genjutsu of that level doesn't work on me. Man, he was just talking to Konoha's Genjutsu Specialist, and he says Genjutsu of that level was not gonna work on him, so whose Genjutsu is going to work on him? I don't think nobody's gonna do anything against the guy. He uses Genjutsu Reversal in a very clean way, and then Kurenai has to bite her own lips, inducing pain so that she can break out of her own Genjutsu. And then Itachi obviously misses a kunai slash on purpose because he's not trying to kill Kurenai. He cuts a bit of her hair, which is not big of a deal. It's just gonna affect her aesthetic. And then Itachi kicks her onto the river. That's pretty much the exchange Kurenai has with Itachi. After that, Kakashi arrives in the battlefield, and then the fight kind of ends after Itachi puts him under Tsukiyomi. And a lot of people like to make fun of Kurenai here because, are you a dum-dum? Why would you use Genjutsu against Itachi, Genjutsu god himself? Now, people that say that do have a point. Like, Kurenai, you should have known better, right? He is an Uchiha, and he just so happens to be one of the strongest Uchihas of all time. People know that the Sharingan is known for Genjutsu, and you're just like, nah, I am the Leaf's Genjutsu Specialist. I don't have to worry about anything. I'm just gonna put this Genjutsu god under my Genjutsu, and I'm gonna solo the guy. That's a little bit of wishful thinking. As I said, Asuma and Kurenai were definitely very overconfident going into this fight. But then again, let me ask you this. What would you have Kurenai do instead of Genjutsu here? Genjutsu is her specialty. That's what she knows how to do. Would you want her to engage Itachi in taijutsu or ninjutsu? We don't even know what type of ninjutsu she would have access to. Maybe she doesn't even know any powerful ninjutsu that would be useful against an S-class rogue ninja. Her taijutsu doesn't seem much better either from the exchange she had with Itachi, and it was a very brief one that she got destroyed. I mean, did you want her to throw rocks at Itachi or shuriken? I don't think that would have worked. Then again, nothing would have worked, really. They were completely and utterly outmatched in this fight. But there was something else that they could do, which was to switch their opponents. If Asuma had engaged Itachi with his kunais imbued with his chakra and stuff in taijutsu, and Kurenai engaged Kisame in genjutsu, I think things could have worked much better for them. It's just that Kisame kind of does the first move and he starts to attack Asuma, so Kurenai has to just kind of hang back and attack Itachi instead, but they should have tried to switch opponents. If Kurenai had aimed her genjutsu on Kisame, maybe that could actually have been effective. We've never seen Kisame dealing with genjutsu himself. Maybe he's not very skillful with dealing with it. We don't know, man. He could be just really bad at genjutsu. But regardless of that, I mean, Asuma and Kurenai there had no chance whatsoever. Even Kakashi, Kurenai, and Asuma had no chance against them. So people tend to be a little bit harsh on Kurenai, and that's mostly because Itachi completely humiliates her and says, genjutsu of this level is not gonna work on me. You're the Leaf Village's Genjutsu Specialist? Man, you guys suck at genjutsu. He doesn't say that, but you know, he might as well have. Kurenai doesn't do much more than that in Naruto Part 1, and honestly, in Naruto Shippuden, her presence is very much diminished. She doesn't have a single fight, she barely has any character development, she just gets pregnant by Asuma, and then Asuma dies. Obviously, we get the pregnant wife mourning scene with Kurenai in Naruto Shippuden because that's obligatory. She gets Mirai, and well, that's all she does in Naruto Shippuden. Kurenai should have definitely been used much more in the story. Just think about how emotional it would have been for her to fight against Asuma in the war arc instead of rehashing Asuma's last words to his team. Asuma versus Inoshikacho was one of the worst fights in the war arc. That's mostly because the fight was boring and it had no meaning to it. We already knew Asuma's last words to each of those characters. The only thing we got from that fight was Choji's character development, which is good, but he could have been developed any other way. It didn't have to be against Asuma. But imagine how interesting it would have been for Kurenai to fight against Asuma. I don't know, man. That seems much cooler to me. Especially because Kurenai hasn't done anything, and you may be saying, well, Kurenai wouldn't go to war because she had a child and stuff. And why not? Everybody's going to war. I bet half of all of those ninjas in the Ninja Alliance had a kid, and they were still going to war. That's how wars work. And just because your child's really young doesn't mean you're not gonna go, especially because Kurenai is a very important asset. She's a Jounin, and as I mentioned before, these types of ninjas are very rare, especially one that's a Genjutsu Specialist. But no, let's just leave Kurenai in there doing nothing. Whatever. And what was the point of the red eyes anyways, dude? Like, why does she have a Tomoeless Sharingan? It really looks like a Sharingan with no Tomoe. For instance, when Sasuke first awakens his Sharingan, he has like one Sharingan with one Tomoe, and then the other Sharingan has no Tomoe, just like Kurenai's eye. It's just a red eye, and well, it looks exactly like hers. So what's the deal with that? We know Kurenai is from the family Yuhi. We don't know if that's an actual clan or just a normal family in the Naruto universe, but we do know her dad. So maybe we can extrapolate her origins a little bit. Kurenai's dad's called Shinku Yuhi, and we just see him once during the flashbacks when the Nine Tails is attacking the village and Minato has to fight Obito and all that stuff. Her dad's job during the invasion was to keep the younger ninjas safe from the Nine Tails, so he kept them inside of a barrier, not allowing them to go and fight against the beast, which, to be honest, is pretty insane. I mean, I would understand if they were like 12 or 10 or even younger than that, but he was keeping Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy inside that barrier. They were 15, 14-ish during that time, and just a year prior to that event, they were literally fighting in a world war in the Naruto universe. A war, by the way, where other villages were using tail beasts against them. We see in the Minato spin-off that the Stone Village was using the 5 and the 4 tails during the wars. And then Shinku Yuhi, Kurenai's dad's just like, no, Kakashi, my guy, you're too weak to go and help. I don't know, man. You guys don't know anything better, and just stay here. I'm gonna keep you guys here for whatever reason. Even though Kakashi could actually be pretty helpful if he could use his Sharingan to try and tame the Nine Tails, for example. I don't know, man. I'm just spitballing some ideas here, but I think Kakashi and Guy obviously would have been useful during the attack. I mean, Guy could also go and save people from the village. He was pretty fast. He could take people to safety, and they were just being kept in there. Like when the Orochimaru attacked the Leaf Village in the Chunin exams, they were sending their 12-year-old Genins into the fight. Like Genma, the absolute mad lad, just said, "Hey Sasuke, did you see Gaara escaping with his siblings? Just go after him and kill the guy for me, okay?" Like, under whose authority? And then Kakashi's like, "Oh man, Genma really sent Sasuke after them. I don't like that. Hey Sakura, Shikamaru, and Naruto, you go after Sasuke now. This is a new A-rank mission." And by the way, A-rank missions are only given to Jounins. And Kakashi literally sent 3 12-year-old Genins on that mission. So, I don't know, man. I think Kakashi at 14 years old, a literal Jounin, would have been helpful during the Nine Tails attack. But regardless, when we look at Shinku Yuhi, he does have the same eyes as Kurenai had. Maybe a little bit more difficult to see it in the anime because the lighting is really dark because the attack's happening at night, but we can clearly see that he has the same design as Kurenai does. And Kurenai actually doesn't like that whatsoever when he's not allowing them to go and fight the Nine Tails and stuff. She's like, "What do you mean? We just have to be here." And her father says, "No, you stay here. One day you're gonna have a son that will inherit the will of fire." I mean, obviously this is just nodding to the fact that, yeah, Kurenai will have a daughter with Asuma, great. And it's very much implied that her dad dies during the Nine Tails attack just because of what they speak during the events in there. It's never really confirmed. This is just my gut feeling. It would just make sense after what they talked about in there. So Kurenai most likely got her weird, quirky Tomoeless Sharingan from her dad. Does that give us any more information than we already had? Not really. Her dad has the same last name as Kurenai, so that also doesn't really help. Now, we don't know who her mom was, so things are still very much open to interpretation. But hear me out, this is getting more interesting. We can estimate that Kurenai's dad was around 40 years old during the Nine Tails attack. Just by his design, he has some older features to his face, and because he's the dad of a 14, 15-year-old girl there, he's gonna be older than most characters. So if he is around 40 or so, his date of birth will more or less align around the time the Leaf Village was being founded by the Uchiha and Senju clans. Maybe he was born after it, maybe he was born a little before it, but it was pretty much around that time, because we just don't really know exact in-universe numbers for when all that stuff happened, but we can obviously estimate. So that guy was born around that time, and he also has a quote-unquote Tomoeless Sharingan, which is very interesting, something kind of Uchiha-like. Why would they have red eyes, and then the Uchiha clan have red eyes as well, and nobody else in the entire series? It's a little bit too coincidental, isn't it? So let me put my tinfoil hat here and just explain my very curious theory. Now, besides from her red eyes, Kurenai also has another quirk to her character. Her jutsus are all plant-like, or plant-based, you could even call it that. Now, obviously they're not plant-based because they're genjutsu, so they're not actually physical, but you get the point, right? When she uses her genjutsu, an ethereal tree manifests itself in the consciousness of the target. Kurenai also really likes plants, like real plants. She's always taking care of them. When Asuma dies, we see her really sad, watering her plants and stuff, so she likes plants, and her jutsu's like, yeah man, I just love plants. Do you know who are also kind of known for their plants? The Senju clan, more specifically Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage. So what if Kurenai is the descendant of an Uchiha and a Senju? More specifically, her grandparents from her dad's side were an Uchiha and a Senju. One of the greatest mysteries of the Naruto series is that the Senju clan just kind of disappears entirely. Now, obviously, this is because the Senju clan's kind of a retcon. Kishimoto came up with it later. But in universe, nobody in the present day has the last name Senju, which is very strange. I mean, you could argue Tsunade does, but we never even hear the name Tsunade Senju being spoken. She's just said to be the granddaughter of the first Hokage, which technically makes her a Senju. but she's literally the only one. I mean, Sasuke exists, the Uchiha clan was pretty powerful, and he's the only one left in the village, and he's still being called an Uchiha. We have several other clans from the Warring States period, the Hyugas, the Yamanakas, the Naras, whatever, man, you can count several of them. But the Senju clan was a founder clan. A clan that the first and the second Hokage belonged to, so you would imagine that there would still be several people named something Senju around the Leaf Village, but there's just none. I mean, there's several Sarutobis, there's Hiruzen Sarutobi, there's Konohamaru Sarutobi, there's Asuma Sarutobi, but there's no Senju, what gives? There are several theories. The most prominent one is that the Senju clan just married to other clans and they just lost their last names, but why wouldn't they keep the Senju last name? That's just weird. Another theory is that they died somehow, but we never really know exactly why or how. But if we kind of take that first theory and apply it to this scenario here, perhaps a Senju married an Uchiha. And yes, we don't know anything about a marriage between an Uchiha and a Senju in canon. The Uchiha clan actually seems to be much more closed off and not open to relationships with other clans, probably because they want to keep the Sharingan bloodline pure, but not to the extreme degree the Hyuga clan goes to. But maybe they weren't even married. Maybe it was just an affair, something that kinda happened. You know how those things work. Especially during feudal times when people didn't have much to do in order to pass their time. Babies just kind of popped out non-stop. So it's not impossible for an Uchiha and a Senju to, have a baby. And that baby would be Kurenai's son, who was born around the founding of the Leaf Village. Around the time the Senju and the Uchiha clans became friends for the first time and they were actually talking and not killing each other. So that's the perfect time for an Uchiha and a Senju to fall in love with each other and have a baby, maybe in secret, maybe not in secret. And then you may be saying, wait, hold on a minute, but if an Uchiha and a Senju had a baby, their baby surely was gonna be an extremely powerful shinobi. He's gonna awaken the Rinnegan because that was the prerequisite, right? You have to have the Uchiha chakra and the Senju chakra, Sharingan plus Senju, and then you awaken the Rinnegan, but actually that's not how it works. You actually need the chakra of a reincarnation of Ashura and the chakra of an Indra reincarnation combined to awaken the Rinnegan. It's not just chakra from a random Senju and a random Uchiha, it has to be from the reincarnations of Ashura and Indra, and that's why Madara and Sasuke are the only people after Hagoromo that awaken the Rinnegan, because they actually are reincarnations of Indra. And you also have to bear in mind that not every single member of the Uchiha and Senju clan were extremely powerful. Hell, the Sharingan was considered something rare among the Uchiha members. It's something that not everybody even awakened at all. And Wood Style was obviously extremely rare too. Hashirama was the only one who had access to it in the entire clan. Obviously, being from one of those clans gives you an edge in most things that you're gonna do, and there's a high possibility that you will be born more talented and with more inherent potential to become a stronger shinobi, but some people just weren't that powerful in those two clans, and they were more normal. And maybe because they weren't so prominent in their clans, they kind of got away with having a child. And so the child was actually born without much of a bloodline inheritance from any of the sides. The child would just have a very basic Tomoeless Sharingan that's practically useless, and some affinity to plants, which kinda resembles what Hashirama and the Senju clan are up to, mostly Hashirama because of the Wood Style, but you wouldn't be able to use Wood Style. You're just going to use your Genjutsu and then form Wood Style in that way, kinda. Almost as though the Uchiha and the Senju inheritance kinda fought each other over in the baby itself and nullified themselves, not getting really strong to any of the sides. The Uchiha Senju couple then had to hide the fact that they had a baby, so they just gave a random last name to the baby, Yuhi. And then Kurenai's dad eventually passed on his weird hybrid Senju Uchiha thing to Kurenai herself. Now, is this a likely scenario? No, it's definitely not. But it's fun to think about it. What actually happens is that in the manga, Kurenai's eyes are not exactly red. red. If you look at the colored version of the Naruto manga, which is official by the way, Kurenai has a different tinge to her eyes, but it's not scarlet like the Sharingan. It definitely tends towards red, but it's definitely a brown reddish type of color. Much more subdued than the Sharingan. It does have a different design with the balls inside of the eye, but obviously it doesn't have Tomoe, and it does have a brighter color. It's kind of unusual for characters to have brown eyes in the manga. The eyes are usually gonna be either completely black, like Sasuke's eyes without the Sharingan, or they're gonna be something really bright, like blue or green. Light brown is much rarer. I can think about other characters like Kurotsuchi and Hashirama and a couple of panels that have a color similar to that. And Kurenai's eye color does tend towards red, so it makes a little bit of sense for her to have red eyes in the anime, but they are too red. They made her eyes resemble the Sharingan way too much. It had to be much more subdued, but I have to admit, red eyes look cool, man, and Kurenai is very unique because of that feature. If she didn't have those scarlet red eyes, then maybe the character wouldn't be as popular as she is, even though she's not that popular, because she kind of vanishes from the story after she gets pregnant, which is a shame. And it's just funny that the animators who decided to make her eyes scarlet red just make people that start watching Naruto think she has a Sharingan, and then a little bit after that, people think she has what style, but it turns out she has neither of those things. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, like the video to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, and also watch this other video right here because it's really cool. Thank you so much for watching, guys.